Good morning. Woohoo. Kick off this morning. Alex,
Jodee.
did you go to bed at a reasonable hour last night, or were you partying?
No, I stayed in and worked and watched Baby Driver.
Oh, excellent. Excellent. So this is the conversation we've both been looking forward to. I'd love you to tell everyone a little bit about what you're thinking about at the moment. I introduced you yesterday as this amazing, rare individual who is an expert in NFTs and AI. And I know that you've recently started a new company called OpenRouter. Can you tell everyone a little bit about that company and what it's doing?
Yeah, so most people are only familiar with one or two language models, like ChatGPT. But the truth is there are thousands of them, and most of them are not worth playing with. But there are about a couple hundred that are pretty smart and interesting because they're created and tuned for very unique data sets that include data that ChatGPT was never trained on. And my thesis about the open language model space, like the open source language models, is that we're gonna come into a world where there are gonna be thousands of these, and people will create them on very cool, unique, custom data sets. And so the question becomes, can we get really interesting intelligence by pulling them all in one place and routing to the most useful ones for everybody, given the prompts that you're sending?
That is an incredible idea. I know when I first saw it, I thought, oh my God, Alex is going to be a first mover again. So you're sort of becoming the central place that a developer or a brand might go when they want to use a language model. And you've got all sorts of KPIs that you track. And but just explain to everyone, what's the difference between a language model and an AI?
Yeah, there are lots of different kinds of AI. And you can kind of break down AI based on the types of inputs and outputs. So for some AI models, you input some text, like describe the image that you want, and out comes an image, or out comes a video. Large language models are typically ones that take in text and output text. And usually it's human text and human text coming out. So we're focusing on language models right now. We might expand to other things in the future. But the nice thing about focusing on language models is that we can aggregate them and compare them in a very objective and sort of interesting way. OpenRouter it's not really making its own models itself. We're kind of like a Switzerland-style neutral comparison playground for all of them. And you can like type in text once and get responses from 10 different models all at the same time if you want.
You may recall when we were speaking a few weeks ago, I said, well, there's a lot of concern about AI. And you said, Jodee, don't worry, I'm not really working on AI, I'm working on language models. So can you just explain to everyone why language models are relatively harmless, but AI can be really scary? What's the difference between a language model and an AI? Is it that the AI has a back end, it's got a brain, and a language model is really just a user experience?
I wouldn't break it down like that. I think language models can be scary. And often people are looking at language models when they're talking about artificial general intelligence, or AGI. So AGI has lots of different definitions, but a lot of people define it as some kind of model that can be better than humans at almost everything. And if it really feels like super intelligence, then it's a very subjective feeling. But people feel that sometimes with language models. And now we're like exploring sort of the edge cases, and I think people, like if you give the language models an IQ test, they don't do super well. GPT is around like an 88, and Claude is around 103. So it doesn't feel like massive super intelligence yet, but we're still seeing models like Claude 3 outperform PhDs at out-of-domain tasks and get kind of competitive with PhDs at their own tasks very often. So it's really wild. Like, it blows my mind. Every few months, there's something crazy that happens. And I think the work that we're trying to do is just know that it's going to be crazy from many different companies all at once. And people will need like a way of comparing and kind of like finding a safe playground for all of them at once.
It's really interesting that you position it as a language model, because that's sort of dehumanizing it. Well, I think the scary thing about AI is that we're not really sure if we're interacting with a higher intelligence or not. When you call it a language model, it makes me feel like it is something that is a tool and is somewhat dehumanized. But when we were talking a few weeks ago, we both agreed that if you attached a language model to a bank account, you're actually turning it into something that could be quite powerful.
Yeah, like language models that are really cool and vertically focused, that are attached to data, some people call agents. And we're starting to see agents become really, really interesting and useful for people and raise like good VC rounds and attract really good talent. Some example agents that probably nobody has heard of, but are like unicorns or on their way to become unicorns pretty soon, are Harvey, which is an agent focused on law. So you can like ask Harvey legal questions and it will be amazing. It's like a free lawyer. But they're selling to law firms so that lawyers can just do their jobs.
Did you say free lawyer?
Well, not
wow.
free.
So Harvey's a agent, but not an AI?
It's more of an agent because it's pulling and integrating data from lots of different places and using a language model to synthesize and like explain what's going on.
So we have,
from my understanding,
we have language models, we have agents, and then we have artificial general intelligence.
Yeah. Another one is Hebia, which focuses on like big, heavy research problems, especially in the fintech world. Some of you may have seen one that came out a couple weeks ago called Devin.
You love Devin, don't you?
I love
You've
Devin
been using
a lot.
Devin.
Yeah.
Didn't you tell me that Devin was actually writing some code for you?
Yeah, so
Devin was also your partner, or
yeah.
is still your partner. So you have Devin here.
Devin's the
Devin, your partner.
CEO of OpenSea, who is now, I think, playing around with Devin as well. And Devin, I'm an investor in Devin. It's a coding-focused language model. So you can kind of, or agent rather. So you land on this page and you say something like, this is what I did when I started trying it out. Make an NFT project, generate 10 images of yourself using Stable Diffusion. That's one of those models that takes text in, image out. And then upload them to IPFS, which is decentralized file storage, using Pinata, and deploy a smart contract onto the Sepolia testnet, and give me the OpenSea URLs. And it was,
wow.
It struggled, but it does its own research. It has its own browser, it has a terminal, it has lots of tools, and it knows how to use them. So it was able to like figure out a lot of things that it wasn't trained to do. And then it just says like, okay, I'll get to work on that right away, Alex. I'll update you every 5 minutes until I'm done. And it just goes and takes like hours and hours and hours, and it needs help in all kinds of ways. And
it needs your help. I'm glad it needs your help.
It's directionally going somewhere very
and you're teaching it.
And it's a good like location for improving.
So any of you want to use Devin the AI, you know that it's actually been taught by Alex the genius mentor, right?
Or all of its early users, but.
But didn't you also say to me that when you give it the same problem a few days later, it forgets things?
It's very early. Memory is one of the biggest problems for AI right now, because language models, one of the core problems is that as you generate longer and longer outputs of text, the amount of compute needed goes up exponentially. It's not linear with how much text you're reading and outputting. So it's very difficult to scale. And that impacts agents, not just models themselves.
And how does OpenRouter monetize?
We're not really monetizing very well yet. Like, we take a small, like 0.6 to 1% fee when you top up, when you basically add credits. And you can add credits using crypto or fiat payments. And so I think it might be one or two different ways of paying for LLMs using crypto.
And you're charging for the API, or you're not charging for the API?
We do charge for, like, when you use models, we give you the at-cost price of that model using your credits.
So you're not adding a margin?
We don't add a margin on top of the, aside from when you add credits into the program, or when you add credits to your account. But I think, like, we're able to get volume discounts pretty often, where we send so much. We do about 32 billion tokens a week now. So we send so much volume to
How many?
these 32 billion tokens, which in AI is like a word of text.
Wow. Already.
Yeah.
Wow.
Like,
woohoo. Let's give this to Alex. This is amazing. You've already created scale.
thank you.
Woohoo.
And the nice thing is it's pretty diversified. It's spread. There isn't one model that's dominating. I think the top series of models is Mistral. All of Mistral's models is about 30%. OpenAI is only 6%. Gemini is around 11% of all of our traffic. And we have a really long tail of interesting merge models where you take two models. It's like taking two brains, grafting them together, and getting something that has the abilities of both out the other end.
And then we also spoke about how do NFTs come in to your current project, and I suggested that we could use NFTs as gatekeepers, because a lot of people are worried about, giving access to, whether you call them language models, agents, or artificial general intelligence. We need to have ways of gating it, and I suggested that using blockchain immutable contracts could be a way of gating the things that these language models can do, and I think you were going to think about that.
Yeah, so I've been thinking a lot about different ways of using NFTs to solve problems with language models, and the other direction. There's a lot of work in the community happening as well. One area that I think is very underexplored but super interesting to do is games. I don't know if I bet no one will raise their hands. Raise your hand if you've heard of the game Turkish Carpet Salesman. So this game, you are in front. You land on the game page, and you're talking to a carpet salesman who's trying to sell you a carpet. And your goal is to buy it at the lowest price possible to basically negotiate back and forth with the carpet salesman. The carpet salesman is really hardcore though, and is not lowering his price at all. And people compete to see if they can get the carpet for free. And it's basically like a competition to see how well you can negotiate with GPT-4. But imagine games like that, but tied to real digital assets, where you could negotiate for an NFT itself. This is still something that nobody's done yet.
So what the counterparty becomes an AI when you're trading an NFT?
So the counterparty basically becomes an oracle. Raise your hand if you've heard of oracles. Should be way more.
Well, now we're adding a fourth thing. So we've got language models, we've got agents, we've got artificial general intelligence, and we've got oracles. You'll still have to explain the difference between all four.
So an oracle is just it's kind of like the conduit between a language model and a smart contract. Because language models right now are built, they have their own systems, and they're not implemented using Solidity or some kind of smart contract. So the way an oracle works is you say, all right, someone has a request to take ownership of an NFT. Let's ask the oracle if we should grant the request. And the oracle is a centralized service that can be double-checked. It can be verified. That's kind of the key difference from just a central server. And grants access to the NFT ultimately if the language model approved or denied or had some sort of output. And there's very few Oracle projects being built, but there are a couple ways of doing them now. Ritual is one. Chainlink I think has something you can use for it. There are some companies that are basically trying to stitch these things together in a really cool, interesting way.
And then just back to my question though about NFTs being gatekeepers. You're not seeing that yet?
So NFTs can only be gatekeepers for AI features, I think, if the weights of the model are either closed or they basically have to be closed. So you could have maybe a closed API with a closed source model, and you have to own an NFT in order to use it. And that is another awesome idea that I think we'll see somebody do at some point.
I have to say that our conversations that we've had, many like this over the years, are my favorite parts of NFT.NYC. And we're out of time, but I just want to finish by saying big thank you. I did tell some people yesterday that you and I had a conversation in 2019, and you said, sure, Jodee, I'll help you underwrite the event. I'm personally underwriting this event, and Alex also personally this year has helped us sponsor 10 AI and NFT developers come to the event. So I just want to say big thank you. You've put your own money into this, as I have, and it's just such a delight to have these conversations with you on stage.
Thanks for believing us early on.
No, totally. Thank you.
Let's give it up. Alex Atallah.